And to kick things off, we want to welcome back one of the most requested presenters from any of our summits. He's an award-winning chef, restaurateur, cookbook author, television and radio personality that has done more than any other culinarian to introduce the country to the regional and local foods of his beloved Michigan and the Great Lakes. So please help me welcome Chef Eric Villegas.
Hey, you crazy culinary cats and kittens. Uncle Eric here, Chef Eric Villegas. I am so happy to be here at Asiva. Is that how you say it? I don't even know. How do you say an acronym? Asiva. Really happy to be here. Unfortunately, I couldn't do it live as I originally intended, but work calls. I'm traveling all over, skittering around the country, doing all sorts of fun stuff. But I wanted to take the time to do a video, since I can't do it live, for you guys to see another kind of way to go about utilizing the great technique sous vide, and something you might not think about. But it's pretty popular right now. Well, it's just cool. So what is it? All right, Eric, stop it. Just tell the people what they want to hear. Well, I'm trying to, but I get confused. It's a taco. It's the birria taco, that Dunkin' one. But it's not beef and it's not chicken. It's kind of pork. It's collard greens. I know, right? It's a traditional Southern version of collards with smoked pork hocks and vinegar and a little bit of sugar, but maple, because I'm in my great state of Michigan. Obviously some hot sauce and some black pepper, some chili flakes, but the collards are all cooked sous vide for hours and hours and hours at really high temperatures to break down those collard greens and to melt out the gelatin, that lip smacking gelatin from those pork hocks. So by taking that and looking at the taco craze that's happening right now, what other dish has that wonderful sauce that comes with it? The pot liquor, as they say in the South. So, normally you just take a big old pot and fill it full of greens and all sorts of other fixins and cook it to death. It turns all gray and ooky, but you get a great pot liquor to dip your cornbread in, right? So think about what I'm doing here. It's pretty cool. So without further ado, let's get to the kitchen. I'm gonna try and put it together for you. I think you're gonna like it. Sit back, relax, and check out my version of the birria taco, but a little bit different, from America's South, with Southern collard greens. It's really cool. Yeah.
Ow! That's gonna leave a mark. Well, now that that's over. Hey kids, thanks for meeting me. Thanks for joining me. We got a lot to unpack, so let's get right into it. Southerners love their greens. They really do. It's a time-honored tradition in Southern kitchens, and greens have held an important place at the table, for well over a century. There's no other vegetable that quite is so unique to that particular region of our great country. Now, we're going to be making the birria tacos stuffed with meso collards. So what exactly are collards, you ask me? Well, they're a vegetable, and they're members of the cabbage family, but they're also really close relatives to kale. Now, they're available year-round because we're using them obviously today, but if you're hitting the farmers markets and that kind of stuff, best through January, from January through April. But again, in the world we live in now, this world market, literally everything's available anytime. So if that's what a collard is, what's a green? Other than being green? Well, it's basically defined as any sort of cabbage where the leaves don't form a compact head. So you don't get that beautiful cabbage head or that beautiful, tight little ball. They just kind of grow kind of wild, like my hair was back in the 80s. So what are they? Well, they're mostly kales, collards, obviously, turnip, spinach, and mustard greens. I'm sure there's a couple other ones. But that's what greens are, and that's what collards are. Now, meso greens, what does that mean? Well, again, it refers to any of the greens, but what's a mess? Well, a mess is when you need a large quantity of greens to serve a family, a large family, you get a big mess of greens. Now, the exact quantity that constitutes a mess varies with the size of the family. So a big family, you get a big mess, and a small family, you get a small mess, I guess. Stuff like that cracks me up. So the traditional way to cook greens um, is to boil it or simmer it in a large pot with some piggy, with some pork. And I'm going to be using a smoked ham hock, but salt pork, big pieces of bacon, any of those would be fine. Now, I've always loved using ham hocks because of the just gross amount of gelatin of collagen that's inside the bones and in the skin. And during this long cooking time, that's going to break down those shanks. And the meat's going to just, become uber tender, and you're going to be able to pull it apart. But the collagen and the skin, it's going to break down. That gelatin is just going to permeate that broth and make it thick and lip smacking and absolutely delicious. But that long cooking also really helps our good friends the collards, because collards, like the other greens, can be very bitter. So this long cooking and that amount of gelatin really tempers the flavor, the bitterness of the greens, and just makes them really, really delicious. And the broth, the resulting broth, is what they call pot liquor, because you take your cornbread and you dip it into the bowl of greens that with that broth, and you would just soak up that cornbread and eat it, and that wonderful flavors. Now, keep in mind, we're doing tacos with a corn tortilla that we're dipping into our pot liquor. I think it's pretty cool. I really like how this whole dish is kind of coming together. So, let's talk about what we're putting in our meso greens. We're obviously using the kale. We're using garlic, a lot of fresh garlic. We're going to be using salt and pepper, the ham hocks, as I said, and we need a little bit of sugar. To not necessarily make it sweet. There's not really that sweetness is coming through. It's just tempering the harshness and the bitterness of the greens. I like using sugar a lot when I'm cooking with beer for the same reason. If the beer is really bitter, a little bit of sweetness will help tame it. Not to the point where it's sweet, but it just kind of breaks it down and adds that other level of flavor. And if we're talking about flavor, that's why I like using Michigan maple sugar, because it's local, obviously, to my region here in Michigan. But I like the flavor. Now, if you didn't have maple sugar, you could easily use maple syrup, um, and then a little bit of vinegar and a little bit of hot sauce. The vinegar adds that nice bright point that's important in this dish because of all the richness. And the hot sauce, well, because we like hot sauce. I know, it's pretty cool too, huh? But we're not doing it in the big pot. Oh, and the liquid. I forgot to tell you about the liquid. What are we using? Well, my recipe calls for water originally, but I like to use broths, and I like to use pork broth if I can. And what I end up doing is, since I sous vide so much when I'm doing ribs or shoulders or that kind of thing, where I'm not using the purge, I'm not using that porky goodness that's in the purge from that long cooking. I just vacuum seal it into small bags and freeze it. And I'm going to be using my pork purge from ribs um, in place of the water. So feel free to do that. And there's more gelatin in there too. So that's really a good thing. So because we're doing it sous vide, it just makes everything so much easier and so much cleaner. And why a lot of people don't like using and cooking collard greens is because of the smell. But since we're doing it sous vide, we get rid of that. So there's nothing you can do. And that's really neat. Now, the other thing is, I just wanted to let you know why it's called pot liquor. Um, I guess it's just a mix of the word liquor, from pot liquor to liquor, Likker, as opposed to Liquor, and it's left in the pot. Now, Southern grandmas said that pot liquor will cure what ails you, and if nothing's ailing you, it will give you a good cleaning out. Let's clean some greens. So it can be a little time consuming, but definitely worth it. Under cold running water, first you want to wash your greens, and then you want to de-stem them or de-rib them. And I basically just grab the leaf, fold it in half, and then pull the bottom of the stem towards the top, and it just comes right out. You see that? Just wash it, fold it, and then grab the stem at the root end and pull. And then as I gingerly pull down, the whole thing comes off just like that. Really simple. And you want to do that with all the greens. It's the best way to go. And please don't buy the bag chopped greens. That's full of stems and they're just really unappetizing. So I always like to wash my greens. So after you get the greens all washed, you get a nice amount. You also get something called collarbones. These are cooked and eaten in a lot of ways in the South, and one of the things I've seen is they were cooked along with the collards, and then they were dried, breaded, and deep fried. Sounds delicious. So now let's prep our greens. Let's cut up our greens. They've obviously been stemmed and washed, and they don't have to be dry at this point. Any water isn't going to hurt nothing. And I'm just going to go ahead and stack them up. Now, this is kind of what I think I remember, what I envision in the opera Carmen, when the tobacco girls would take those big leaves of tobacco and lay them on their thighs and roll out these beautiful cigars. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Anyway, so I just want to go ahead and stack them up. This isn't really too delicate a situation. You just want to cut these, and I found this the easiest way to do it. So then I roll it to like a cigar type shape, and then I like to take my knife and cut all the way lengthwise, still holding it together so it doesn't fall apart, and then just cut across in any size that I want. Now, for collards, if I'm just having collards, big ones aren't a big deal, but since we're doing the tacos, I want to make sure they're a little bit smaller so they're going to work well fitting into our shells. And you can see how nice and fluffy and green they are. Delicious! On to the pork hocks. Oh, this video. I am so sorry. Remind me never to put the camera on the table. So once you've readjusted your sight, all you want to do is with the tip of a sharp knife is to score the skin. It's really hard, so you want to be really sharp and be careful. And you just want to cut through that skin so it's just going to be easier when you're breaking them down after cooking. And also that scoring allows the gelatin and fat to come out easier during cooking. Next up with shaky video, chopping garlic. Just grab your clove, blade away from you, and slap that bad boy down. Oh, jeez, that video. And then just want to go ahead and chop it up. You know, the finer, the better, maybe. I like it kind of chunky, but it's totally up to you. And as much as you want. I think I use 4 or 5 cloves here, but I do love me some garlic. Time to bag this bad boy up. I'm using Zwilling J.A. Henkel's, yes, the knife company. They jumped into the vacuum sealing department. It's pretty cool. We'll talk about that in a second. And I'm just going to put everything in there. The sugar, the garlic, the salt, the pepper, the chili flakes, the oil, the stock, and the shanks, all inside the bag. Now you can see it's all filled up. All my wonderful ingredients are in there. The broth is in there. The broth is in there, but it's really gelatinous, and it was cold, so it's kind of clumpy, which actually will work out better when you're using this type of vacuum sealer. So what Zwilling has done is they've developed a handheld vacuum pump with reusable and washable bags, along with a bunch of other stuff, some containers and borosilicate glass, the original Pyrex, and wine stoppers and cool things. But all you do is you close it like you would any sort of a resealable bag, and then you grab the pump. Look at that. That's pretty slick. And so after the bag is sealed, you just simply place the pump over the air valve, just like that. Now you got to kind of make sure you get it, and this is kind of hard for me to do as I'm looking at the camera, but I just make sure that it's centered over the bag, and then I just go ahead and press the twins, the Zwillings, and the pump starts up and it vacuum seals the bag. It's really clever what they've done with their whole new Fresh and Save system. And I've been traveling with this unit because I've been cooking sous vide in my hotel room because I can, and it's been a lot of fun. But it pulls a very nice vacuum. It's a lithium-ion battery, rechargeable, and it works exceptionally well. And I really like the idea that the bags are washable and reusable. That makes me feel a little bit better with all the plastic we use in the sous vide. But so look, it just stops automatically. Now a little bit of the liquid came out, and I just wiped that off. And then you just want to press down that center dot, and that locks the bag. And there you go. Look at that. That's a pretty nice seal, I think, for a little handheld pump. And that's exactly what I wanted. My meso greens all bagged up and ready for the circulator. So I have my water bath set at 190 degrees Fahrenheit, or 88 degrees Celsius, around there, and I'm just going to drop them in. But keep in mind, that's hot, ouch, hot water. So I'm just going to take my little tamper here from my mortar and pestle and push that bag down underneath my disco balls. You're going to need something to cover it because at that high temperature and the 13 or 14 hours we're cooking, you're going to see a lot of water evaporation. So you want to make sure you're ready for that. So just go ahead and let them cook the old sous vide way. So after 13 hours or so, check it out. Look at that. Look at those big chunks of garlic. Yeah. And that broth at the top. Yeah. So to open these bags is super simple. You just open it just like you would open any other reusable, openable bag, Ziploc type bag. And then we want to pour this stuff out, but you got to be careful because, yeah. Jeez, I'm a spaz. So I like to pour it all into one bigger bowl. And again, these bags are reusable and washable, so that's kind of neat. And then go ahead and dig out your pork fixins. Look at that, Hawk. Yum. See how that skin is pulled away? Now you want to go through and separate the bones from the meat and whatever cartilage is in there. Kind of go through with your little fingers and pull it all apart. Now, I like to leave the fat in, but you could easily separate the fat out and just use all the meat, or still separate it out and just add as much fat as you can take. But as you're cutting, be careful because you might miss some. See, I'm missing some right here, and there's a little piece there that wouldn't go down well, so I'm going to discard that. But make sure you go through everything and then just start chopping. And I like just putting all the fat in, especially in these tacos because it's just going to be delicious. And then for the tacos, I want to cut it a little bit finer than I would if I was just doing a standard pot of collards. Again, because we want them to fit into the taco. We want pieces small. So after you get it all done, just go ahead and choppy chop to your heart's content, whatever texture you want. And there you go. I love using these bench scrapers. It's a great way to move food around. Or if you have the Chinese vegetable cleavers, those big wide cleavers, those work really great as well. And it's like one smooth thing. But there you go. Look at that beautiful pig. Now, go ahead and pour the pig as much or as little as you want into the cooked greens. And now we just want to go ahead and mix all this up, and we want to season it as we go. Again, the raw and unfiltered apple cider vinegar. I'm just doing some splashes. I don't really have, even in the recipe, I think I say season to taste. But this is really up to you. Hot sauce, again, of your taste, as little or as much as you want. Vinegar, the same kind of thing. But what we're really looking for is balance. We're looking for balance between the bitterness that's of the collards that have been toned down from the cooking. That sugar is helping. And then the vinegar cuts through a lot of that fat. And you can see that beautiful broth. So make sure you get it all mixed together. Now, if you want to add more sugar too at this point, you certainly can. You can add, you can add anything you want. But let's go ahead and taste it. Oh, that is good. But I'm going to add just a hair more. That's some fine sea salt, a little bit of fine sea salt, and a little bit more hot sauce. For my taste. But again, as you know, it's all subjective, however you want it. But there you go. That is a gorgeous, well, in my world, that is a gorgeous meso greens and pot liquor. Delicious. Who's ready for tacos? So, corn tortillas. My sous vide garlic oil. You can see it, the recipe be included. I'm dipping the corn tortillas in the infused oil and then placing them fat side down in the skillet. I'm going to tempt fate and go two at a time. Now the cheese, again, it can be literally anything you want to use. I'm going to be using fresh mozzarella for this because I had it. I would use Monterey Jack. I would use any of the Mexican melting cheeses. Would be delicious, queso fresco or queso blanco, Chihuahua, whichever. And now, those gorgeous, gorgeous collard greens and those chunks of piggy, that smoked pork hock and the fat. You can see some of those chunks of fat. You're just going to spoon that over. It's good to have the cheese down first. This is as you know, if you're not familiar, these are really messy tacos. So there's a lot of liquid. The key is to go medium to medium high heat and to let them cook. And you want to crisp them up, and you want to basically dry them out and crisp them up. So you saw I just put them in flat and then folded them over. So I'm using a non-stick skillet here, but my preference would have been, if I had it around handy, a big cast iron skillet or a cast iron comal or something similar. And those metals would have been preferable for better heat retention, and because those metals breathe, I think you get a crisper final product. But you're just going to, fill it up when it's open. Then with Teflon fingers, you're going to go ahead and fold them over and then gently cook them. I like to flip them a couple, 3 times to make sure I'm getting a good crisp crust and I can see it and it's not burning. I do like it, though, when the cheese kind of starts to melt out the sides a little bit. It gets all crispy and delicious. But you just want to keep your eyes on them. And you want to do as many as you can because these are delicious. And see, now there you go. That's the color you want. So flip it over that way, and they're really nice. And if you're wondering where I got that freakishly small spatula, well, I use that for quail eggs when I'm doing sunny side up quail eggs. But now, they're for my birria tacos. So now you can see with my fingers, I'm kind of testing the shell, and they're crispy. They're getting crisp. See that? And I like that. That's what I'm looking for. I don't want to tempt fate and get them really too much more brown for fear of burning my beautiful taquitos. But this is exactly what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these guys off. Maybe I can show you one. They're hot, but they look how delicious they look. So let's see. Look at that. Oh, yeah, the steam coming off there, the cheese melting, little niblets of piggy falling into the pan. There is nothing better than smelling these things and listening to them. I think it's not just the smells and sabor and flavors of cooking, but the sounds. That crispy sound is wonderful. So there they are. Look at those guys. 3 beautiful, beautiful collard green birria tacos with pot liquor, or the Mexicans would call it the consomme, with the pot liquor for dipping. Oh man. And they look good and they smell good. Now I will say, for the uninitiated, these are truly messy and they're kind of rich, but look at that. Oh my gosh, see the gelatin hanging from the bottom? It's starting to congeal a little bit. The bites, the tastes, the flavors. I cannot get enough of these. I was really surprised at how much I like them. Using collard greens like that. And again, as I was talking earlier, that could be kale, that could be mustard greens. It could be a combination. You can use combination greens. They do that all the time in the South in their gumbos and in their greens and their mesa greens. Look at the juice just squirting out.
Oh, man.
Are you kidding me? How much better can food get? I don't really know.
So
but I think they're pretty gosh darn delicious. They're just so damn good. So what had happened was I had made a big batch of these collard greens because I love them. With my barbecue, we're just on their own. These are just so damn tasty. And it was a couple, 3-4 months ago, and that birria taco was just running all over the internet. And I thought, that's pretty cool. That looks delicious. That looks juicy. That looks like juicy. Wait a minute. What other dish comes with its own liquor? The pot liquor in traditional collard greens is the perfect combination when you dip in your cornbread. So if you're dipping in cornbread, why don't you dip in a corn tortilla stuffed with collard greens, just redolent with smoked pork hock and that gelatinous, delicious flavor, the spices, the vinegar. And then the cheese, so I'm using mozzarella, fresh mozzarella, because that's what I had. Monterey Jack, any sort of queso blanco, queso fresco, or the other Mexican melting cheeses would be delicious in this. Even cheddar, if you wanted to go more Americano on it. But sous vide
is such a great technique for this because you throw everything in the bag, you put the liquid in the bag, everything, you go ahead and you cook it forever, no fuss, no muss, you pull off the meat as you saw, and it's really a delicious dish. So really do try these wonderful collard greens just on their own. But if you want to take it to the next level and really like shock people, I think this collard taco is really delicious. So to all my friends out there, I'm wishing you a great end of COVID, we hope. And I hope to see you all soon somewhere out on the road.